Welcome to tonight's program. I'm Kelly Wright, and I'm glad you could join us. This next hour is going to be a very important hour as we focus on a lot that's happening, even in the midst of COVID-19, which leads me to my opening observations. You would think that because we're already experiencing a pandemic and we've seen that violence or crime therein has gone down in a lot of our urban communities, that we would put violence behind us. And yet it has loomed big and large in our minds, and it's all on social media. We're all talking about 2 deaths of unarmed Black men, one in Brunswick, Georgia, the other in Indianapolis. And both cases have awakened us to the fact that Black lives do matter. Let me remind you that it was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who stated that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And certainly in these cases, as we will come to find out, there is a great deal of injustice anytime someone opens fire on an unarmed man. And in this case, white assailants attacking Black men. One a police officer in Indianapolis, another a retired member of law enforcement, and his son. Egregious, outrageous, and for me personally, disturbing. And those are my opening observations. Joining me now to weigh in on this is Dr. Benjamin Chavis. He is the president and CEO of NNPA Black Press USA, and he joins us now. And Ben, I can't put my head around this one.
Kelly, this is another night, a sad day, a sad night, not only for Black America, but I would also say for the world community. The eyes of the world are on the United States of America in terms of COVID-19 and the disproportionate impact that it's having on Black Americans and other people of color. So it's in that context that we now have these 2 brutal murders, one in Georgia, one in Indiana, Black men lives have been taken. And so, I think, Kelly, that in the Bible, there's a scripture about our cup runneth over. And the question now is, what do we do? We just can't attend another funeral and then wait for the next funeral. Mm-hmm. And men, again, I just think that I want to thank you for the show that you're having tonight. All your shows are great, but tonight, this focuses on the pain, the misery, the suffering, but I would also say the unfairness, the brutal racism, the brutal impact of hatred, racial hatred, that pulls the trigger on Black lives, that takes Black lives. And so we have to do something about it. And I hope that after your show, we can talk about having a national emergency town hall meeting about these cases and other cases left unresolved. And again, it's in the context where we're already suffering, where we are already impacted. The quality of life of Black America is at stake. And so I'm thankful that the Black News Channel has the Kelly Wright Show, and certainly speaking on behalf of all the Black newspapers in America, NNPA and the Black PressUSA.com, we want to join with you. Not only to discuss these matters, report these matters, but I think we're at a point now where we have to develop some resolve of what it is we're going to do about it. It's clear that if Black America doesn't stop it, it will not stop. Yes, white Americans have to be involved in also the remedy because they're the perpetrators. But I just don't think that we should wait for the benevolence of others, particularly from the benevolence of those that perpetrate these crimes against us. We have to reassert not only our value of our life, but we have to do everything in our power to protect our lives from this kind of suffering, from this kind of exposure.
Dr. Benjamin Chavis, who represents the NNPA and the Black Press USA, to your point, we do have to remember this. We must not forget this, and we must challenge all America, all Americans, to speak out against this evil, because what's taking place is evil. And in terms of a town hall meeting, we will pursue that. And not only just for the sake of having a meeting, but having a meeting for a purpose. And the purpose is to drive this insidious evil away from all Americans. And that's getting to the root causes of racism and the injustices and the violence that it causes people to inflict on each other based on the color of one's skin. That must be stopped.
Well, we stand with you, Kelly, and the Black News Channel. Let's keep this message. I just want to say that amidst our pain, amidst our suffering, amidst our mourning, we must not lose hope. We must not lose faith. In fact, it's in times like these that we have to strengthen our resolve, reassert our voices, and reassert our action agenda. So hopefully we will not only go through this, come through this, drive evil out of our midst, but also put ourselves in a better place as men, women, and children, as families, as communities, to move forward and not let the forces of hatred, the forces of racism win, and not let them get away unpunished by taking lives from our community. We need to act in a way that not only seeks a kind of a response, but preventatively as well as reactively. We have to act now like never before.
Dr. Benjamin Chavis, thank you for being a part of the program today. And I know you'll be joining me again tomorrow. Tomorrow is National Day of Prayer, and certainly we will need you to come on and have a prayer with each and every one of us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good day to you. And we'll continue with more of the program. Coming up next, we'll be talking to Michael Eric Dyson and Dr. James Peterson about this very issue. It is alarming, and we're going to continue to address it and continue to talk about it on this program. Back with more after this. Welcome back. Continuing on with our story now as we focus on the two shootings of two Black men, one in Indianapolis and, of course, one in Brunswick, Georgia. These are cases that are shocking the senses of each and every American who really cares about life. And for those of us in the Black community, it shows us the importance of stating the fact that Black lives matter. So joining me to discuss this is Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, as well as Dr. James Peterson. And gentlemen, welcome to the program. Let's get right down to this. This was something that didn't have to happen. It has, and it's inflicted upon us a lot of pain in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic we're dealing with. So welcome to the program. My first guests are here to discuss something that's very alarming to each and every one of us. Michael Eric Dyson, as well as Dr. James Peterson, they join me now to talk about two incidents involving police shootings of Black men. And I should say one is a police shooting case. One involves a former police officer in Georgia, in Brunswick, Georgia. He and his son encountered a Black man who they claimed was a robber, and without ever questioning him, we saw some disturbing things on video, as well as the young man in Indianapolis who was also shot. And apparently that incident was shown live, and disturbing video for everyone to see both of these. That particular video out of Indianapolis was on Facebook. So Michael and Dr. Peterson, I'm one, in this age of coronavirus, we're seeing that there's a virus still within the heart of men, and that is that we have not learned to shoulder our weapons and learn how to talk. And what's disturbing is that two young Black men are dead. How do we make sense of this? Michael?
The vicious assault upon vulnerable Black life in this country, not armed, minding one's own business, and being asked by white people as if they have the right during slavery or Reconstruction during Black codes to demand your papers, and boy, tell them to me now. it seems to be a revival of that sense of responsibility owed to white people upon demand to evince the reasons for our citizenship or our appearance in a particular town or street or community without legal warrant, except in those states where some kind of stand your ground law or the ability to, in open carry states, to ask and make, to make a citizen's arrest or to demand culpability always seems to be geared toward and directed toward African American or Latinx or some other kind of minority people. It doesn't seem to be, quote, white on white crime that evokes concern. So at the end of the day, this again is to lay out what you're speaking about, and what Dr. Peterson will brilliantly speak to is a systemic underlying pandemic that unfortunately will outlive the pandemic we're living through right now of COVID-19. This is anti-Blackness. This is hatred of Black people come alive. This is the manifestation of decades and centuries of neglect, of denial, of suspicion, of skepticism, of hate, and there is no other way to put it. And it now has legal force. It has had all along some kind of legal force, but there's been a legal challenge to it as well. And we mustn't give up on that. But at the same time, we've got to acknowledge that in many ways, it appears that our hands are tied, but we've got to keep fighting. But the evil and the horror of what we confront is undeniable.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael and James. Dr. Peterson, what the attorney for Ahmed Arbery's mother is stating is that there will be a case, there will be a grand jury, and these two men, the McMichaels, a father and son, white men who were looking for a Black suspect, they claim, who was actually going in committing burglaries. Now this is in the broad daylight, and you're a Black man running with a white shirt on. You're not out to rob anyone, you're jogging. And then of course, in the other case, there was a police chase with Sean, and we don't know all the circumstances of that other than the fact that he too is now dead, being shot by police officers. So we have two cases, and to Michael's point, we're going through a pandemic, but there is still the epidemic of what's going on in terms of how Black men and Black women are viewed in society, especially by white people who are armed and not afraid of using lethal force in a situation where two men are unarmed.
I mean, if you ever needed an example, or for some reason you don't believe that racism and white supremacy exists in the 21st century, I can't offer you a more concrete example of white supremacy and institutional racism in America in the 21st century than the simple fact that the McMichaels are still at home, they still have their arms, they have not been arrested, they have not been charged, and the murder of Mr. Arbery took place on February 23rd. If you ever need an example to understand why people get out in the streets, talk about Black Lives Matter, if you were confused about why we have to say Black Lives Matter, if you were confused by that, take a look at the video, see how they murdered him, and then think about the fact that today is May 7th, I believe. They have yet to be arrested. They're still at home. They're still armed. They have not been charged. There is no way to look at the moment that we're in right now and deny that we live in a white supremacist, racist society. There is no way to look at the moment that we're in right now, the pandemic within the pandemic, as Dr. Dyson was saying, right? Or the COVID-16-19 pandemic, right?
Right.
People get upset sometimes when we talk about race. They want to say we're race hustlers, or they want to say it's not always about race. You guys are always talking about race. They want to say blue lives matter when we say Black lives matter. For anyone who's ever been confused about those issues, I urge you, please take a look at the tapes, right? But here's the thing. Dr. Wright, Dr. Dyson, we spent a lot of time talking about, like, we're trying to get into the minds of the murderers. Like, are they racist? Are they white supremacists? Why haven't they been arrested? I want your viewers to do the following. put yourself in the shoes of Mr. Arbery's mom,
Yes.
who is going to be experiencing her first Mother's Day with the memory of her son, the circulation of a video of the murder of her son all over the world, without one modicum or one tiny iteration of justice being presented to her and her family. We should talk about the killers, and we should identify them and be critical of them. But I hope that folks will take some time to put yourself in the shoes of his mother. This is going to be a very, very difficult Mother's Day for her.
I'm talking to Dr. James Peterson as well as Michael Eric Dyson. We're going to come back and continue to talk about this matter right after the break. Welcome back to the program. So we're still talking about this dastardly deed that's been inflicted upon two Black men, dead now. They were unarmed. We've been talking about it throughout this program. And we continue now with the conversation with Michael Eric Dyson and Dr. James Peterson.
It does not represent the nation at its best, and yet it has represented the nation at its most persistent disregard for Black life. And when people say, this can't be American, this is not American, it is quintessentially American. And the question is, what choice will we make to create another America, and another America that says Martin Luther King Jr. is chosen over the Ku Klux Klan? This is vigilante justice, except the offense is Blackness itself. To create and to manufacture some kind of warrant and justification for the cold killing of two Black men, one by law enforcement, another by former law enforcement, where two attorneys general locally have had to recuse themselves, or district attorneys or prosecutors have had to recuse themselves because these men worked for them. Do we really think that the pantomime of justice, the gesture toward it, is its real existence? That they're going to go through the marks. We hope and pray that this grand jury that will be impaneled eventually in June, a month from now, will take its job seriously. But at the end of the day, as Dr. Peterson pointed out in his radio show yesterday, these kinds of grand juries, when forced to convene, have often not returned a verdict that we think is just.
Right.
So even there, the gesture of it, the pantomime of justice, is not the existence of it, is not the reckoning with this force that is vicious and viral. So we're asking fellow white citizens to judge fellow white citizens about habits, dispositions, viewpoints, unconscious biases, and conscious animus, to which few of them will willingly own up to. Don't forget, this is occurring when white men with guns and women are flocking to state capitals to protest stay-at-home orders and the refusal to open this society. Once it has become clear that this is a, quote, Black disease, therefore let the Blacks, scuffle, struggle, and make it the best way they can. Those of us who are white, we are not the ones who are being targeted by this disease, and the anger is palpable. The MAGA hats, the Confederate symbolism, suggesting to us, this is all of a piece. The hunting down of Mr. Arbery and Mr. Reed, the storming of state capitals by assault weapons bearing white people with MAGA hats and the Confederacy, is of a piece. And so for those who are upset, even my friend Bill Maher, you can talk about Donald Trump, but not talk about his followers. These are the followers. Yeah. This is not Mr. Trump. These are people in the streets who are making decisions. who are consciously giving expression to venom, to viciousness, and to vitriol, and it is costing us our lives. And how weary we are, not only to live it, not only to talk about it, but to only have recourse here on your show or media, or taking the social media, the television or radio, and expressing ourselves, but at the end of the day, not having the power to reinforce the meaning of our lives to people who fundamentally don't care.
But here's the thing. Without white folks challenging and holding other white folks to account the way that your mom was asking for you to hold yourself accountable, and she was holding you accountable, without white folks doing that amongst white folks, there's not going to be a lot of change around these kinds of instances. You can't penetrate the world of the McMichaels, the world that they live in, the bubble that they're in. You can't penetrate their world with our programming, our discussions, our activism, our marching. That doesn't penetrate their world. They've got to have people who are in that world come to a different understanding about the value of everyone's life, but especially the value of Black lives, because the way that our lives are being lost and the way that our lives are being devalued, whether it's in the pandemic, whatever social structure system you want to think about in this nation, or within the criminal justice system, or if it's in extrajudicial killings, they have got to take accountability for their community.
My thanks to my guests, Dr. James Peterson and Michael Eric Dyson. We'll be back with more of the program as we focus next on what's happening in Los Angeles and how that city is dealing with COVID-19. Welcome to the program. So as you've seen, we've been focusing on a lot that's going on within the African American community as it pertains to the violence that's inflicted upon us at the hands of white Americans who are armed. And we've got to address that. But the other thing we have to continue to address is this pandemic that we're continually dealing with right now in the age of COVID-19. So joining me now is Herb Wesson. He is a city council member in Los Angeles, part of the Los Angeles City Council. And my good friend, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, joins us as well. She is a psychology expert and life coach. And certainly we need both of you at the helm, if you will, because we can see private and public entities working hand in hand to do something good in their hood. And that's the best way I can explain it. So Council Member Herb, why don't I begin with you and tell me what's happening from a city standpoint of how Los Angeles is dealing with COVID-19.
You know, so much is going on, but for us in the city of Los Angeles, we felt that it was critical to protect the renters in this city. We have more renters than individuals that own property. So and you know, we are already dealing with a significant homeless crisis. So one of the things that we did at the city council was to put in place strong tenant protections to make sure that we don't add to our homeless population by evicting individuals that could not pay their rent because they are out of work. You know, about 50% of the people in this city are not working. So we put in place tenant protections, which basically gives them a year to make up rent payments that they may have missed. We've also put together funds for rental assistance, and we're doing things to try to help our restaurants by working out relationships between them in the city of LA, where they're delivering hot meals to seniors. But I want to say the most important thing is to make sure you have a roof over your head and food to eat. So we've been engaged in all kinds of food giveaways. We're required to wear masks. So I don't want anybody to think that I don't, but my mask is cool.
Yes,
but,
very fashionable.
Yeah, mine is tailor-made mask. Little senior citizen made it for me. And so we've been trying to give the people in this city the things that they need to survive right now. But our biggest concern, one of my biggest concerns, is as we begin to open things up and you see people go back to work, how are we going to protect them? How are we going to keep them safe? When you talk about essential workers, you're talking about truck drivers, you're talking about grocery store clerks, you're talking about us. You're talking about Blacks and Latinos. And then when you look at the statistics where it relates to who seems to get this virus the most and who is dying the most, it is people of color and poor people. So as we begin to open up, we need to ensure that we're paying people a fair wage and providing them with health care and health education. So when the next crisis hits, that we're not the ones that feel the brunt of it.
So I'm talking with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant as well as LA City Council member Herb Wesson. We'll be back with more of my interview with them right after this. Welcome back to the program as we continue now with my conversation with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant as well as Los Angeles City Council member Herb Wesson. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, if you'll come in for a moment with me, for those who are disturbed, like for example, I just got to be honest with you, you're a good friend. I'm disturbed by what I see and how this has adversely impacted our community, primarily because of the disparities and inequities that have existed before COVID-19. We're seeing it during COVID-19. And like Councilmember Wesson just said, we're going to see it beyond COVID-19. So help me, if you will, what do you do from a mental health perspective, Dr. Bryant, to help people not muddle through this, but get through this and overcome this?
Absolutely. To help them not just merely survive, but to thrive in a pandemic like this. And I mentioned this before, Kelly, within our conversation, that the Black and Brown community, they have been experiencing symptom-like pandemic type environments before this pandemic. And so you add this pandemic to an already surviving community, an already surviving race of people, you're adding on 200 to 300% more of stress, of anxiety, of depression. And that becomes really, really heavy. When you have the CDC, who has not released the effects, the disproportionate effects on a Black and Brown community by race, they're giving us numbers as a whole. No, we need numbers by race. We need to know how many of our people are being affected by this, how many of our folks need access to healthcare. That's the information, the data that we need as community leaders so that we can go into our inner city, our hood, and provide the necessary essential care for our people to thrive, for our people to get health care. We've already been experiencing a healthcare disparity that's been sitting on the back burner of the American healthcare system for years. That's not new to us. But again, I've said this, if you know that you have Black and Brown folks that are being disproportionately affected by a pandemic, by a disease, why is it that you're not setting up not only test sites in the heart of these cities, but also treatment? Why is it that we're not having psychoeducational disease education set up in the heart of our cities? Why is it that we're not provided extra funding so that our inner city can have the necessary things like a face mask, as simple as a face mask? Not everybody has access to that. I mentioned this on our local news here. Really quick, I went into a Target, a Black guy had on a ski mask, and he got racially profiled for that. And you know what that young man said? This is all that I had at home to protect myself and to cover my face. Now you have elected officials that are saying, wear your ski mask, protect yourself, protect others, and you come in there with all that you have. It could be a bandana. They've stated this clearly on the news. Wear a bandana, wear whatever it is that you can, a t-shirt to protect yourself. You have a young Black man comes into a store, abiding by the rules, doing what's right, and he still gets racially profiled? No, it's disheartening. And unfortunately, These are circumstance situations that, alongside underlying health issues, become a mental health issue.
We have to redress this and address this, and we have to have you both back on, because it's important what you're doing, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, in the medical community, the mental health community. It's important what you're doing, Council Member Herb Wesson, and what you're doing in terms of representing the second largest city in America, Los Angeles. Now, I know the county has some 10 million people. The work that both of you are doing, public and privately, is so important. And I hear your cry, and that's why I wanted to give you a voice to expanding your message on this platform. I got to have you back if you want to come back next week or whenever to update me on what's happening in Los Angeles, because we cannot afford to lose lives. And to your point, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, I'm glad you're doing that with the NAACP, stating that we are tired of dying. And just an editorial note on my own, we're tired of dying not only from COVID-19, but from violence. So I welcome you both to come back on. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, as well as Councilmember Herb Wesson, please continue the good fight.
Well, thank you. And I follow Dr. Bryant wherever she goes. She's my leader.
Thank you, Herb.
She is a good person to follow. Thank you both. And we'll be back with more of the show after this. Welcome back to the program. So my next guests are two people who really know what's going on in the heart of African-American lives, because they are part of a wonderful organization. They are members of the Sacramento National Coalition Black Women, and they represent, as in other cases, the Black women of America. Dr. Elizabeth Sherrill Davis, and we also have Ebony Stagg, who is also part of the STEM program that's underway through the Sacramento National Coalition of Black Women. Ladies, thanks for joining us. Excuse me for getting a little tongue-tied there, but I'm excited to have you on to talk about the issues as it pertains to COVID-19 and how your organization and the national chapter is reaching out to help advocate for the health, the education, and the economic empowerment of Black women. Dr. Sherrill Davis, we'll begin with you.
Thank you very much for having us today. The National Coalition of 100 Black Women, our national office based in Atlanta, Georgia, has provided us a directive to continue reaching out to our communities. Although in the state of California, we are not allowed to gather in large groups, so the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Sacramento chapter has decided to move forward with Zoom webinars and training courses for the Sacramento members. And that would be, I shouldn't say the members, but our community, our African-American women in the Sacramento community in the areas of economic empowerment, public policy, education, and health.
What concerns do you have going forward, Dr. Elizabeth Sherrill Davis, about the impact this has on the African-American community and helping women and their families get through this?
What the focus is to make sure that the health information is being provided to the African-American women and their families in terms of how the COVID-19 is affecting the families. What can we do as an organization to make sure that that information is filtered to African-American women and their families? And that's in regards to being healthy, providing the African-American women and the community with the importance of eating healthy and exercising at least 30 minutes per day, some of those healthy recipes, partnering with health organizations such as UC Davis or Mercy General, Kaiser Permanente. It's collectively as an organization in the community that we provide this information this important information to African American women and to their families and the community.
What is going on today in terms of people being able to reach out and touch you and help give, since charities have been so beleaguered because of this economy? It's important that we keep our charities going so that they can help others.
Yes, most definitely. So on May 7th in the Northern California, Sacramento region area, there's an organization that has an initiative for the Big Day of Giving, where over 600 nonprofits are able to solicit donations in that 24-hour period. And so if you go to bigdayofgiving.org and look for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, you'll be able to see the programs that we have. And if you would like to donate, you can donate so we can stretch our reach and continue the programs that we're doing here in the Sacramento area.
Dr. Elizabeth Sherelle Davis, as well as Ebony Stagg, thank you both for the great work you're doing, and thank you to the organization, the 100 Black Women of America, and all the great things you're doing. So we'll stay in touch with you, keep us updated on what's happening, and we look forward to being of service to you here on this program, as well as this network, the Black News Channel. Thank you, ladies. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Back with more of the show after this. Welcome back to the program. As you know, there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers out there on the front lines. They risk their lives every day to treat people with the coronavirus, realizing that they could contract the disease or the virus themselves. And they're always careful about trying not to pass it on to others, like their own families, for example. So from San Francisco, joining me now is Brittany Doyle. She is Massive Public Health founder, CEO of Wise Health. And Brittany, thank you for being a part of the program and taking time out of your busy schedule from the front lines to talk to me about what you and your colleagues face on a daily basis with this.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So what's it like out there on the front lines? We hear about it and yet we see it, but we don't really feel it until we hear from people like yourself.
Yeah, so with Wise Health, in response to the shelter-in-place order, we have put together a meal delivery service that is designed to reach low-income, isolated seniors with critical needs. And so for us, we are doing a lot of work in the community as far as going to people's homes, checking on people, bringing them food, calling seniors on a weekly basis with our companion matching program, is making sure that we are constantly involved with our most at-risk vulnerable populations here in the city. So far, we are serving 120 seniors, and we have not encountered anyone that is sick or even, shows symptoms or has been impacted, surprisingly. The services that we provide are in the Bayview community, which is a low-income African-American community here in San Francisco. And the response efforts have been so coordinated. And so right now, our main response is just making sure that everybody has food to keep them in the house and that they have the resources that they need so that they don't come out and put themselves further at risk.
Well, Brittany, what do you think about the fact that there are people out there in various states protesting, demanding to be reopened, and basically saying the medical community should not be dictating our freedoms, and yet they're not even, acknowledging the fact that there are some people out there on the front lines of the healthcare industry who are dying because they're trying to help save them. And so I'm just curious to know what do you think about the protest to reopen states?
I think that the people that are out there protesting have not been impacted personally by the coronavirus. it's very hard for me to say. I personally have been impacted. I know people that have had the virus. Luckily, I know people that have survived the virus. And I personally think we need to stay inside. But I think for those smaller cities or, communities out there that are ready to open up the city, I don't think that they really see the risk. In the media, they say, initially when the coronavirus first hit, it impacted the Asian community. So a lot of people, could not relate to that. A couple of weeks ago, or just even last week, it was talking about how it impacted the African-American community. And once again, a lot of people can't relate to that, so they don't think that it impacts them. And so it's easy for them to go out and say, reopen my city, when, they're not on the front lines. They're not, they're not a nurse, they're not a doctor, they're not in the trenches.
Well, Brittany, I appreciate all that you're doing to provide services for the most vulnerable part of our population. You're right there in the heart of it and helping a lot of people. And it's not easy to be out there. And I'm glad you're safe and well, and that the people that you've been helping are safe and well. And please keep us updated with all that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Brittany Doyle, CEO of MPH and Wise Health. I appreciate you being on the program. Stay safe out there in San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back with more of the program after this. And welcome back to the program. And now for my final word. First, I want to thank all of the guests who have been on today's program. And the remarkable thing that's going on in our world right now is that we are still dealing with a pandemic, and yet we're faced with the epidemic of racism, a virus revealing that we still have a virus of hating our fellow man based on the color of our skin. It was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who stated, and I'm quoting him here, "I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." And he also stated this, if I can read it for you: "Man must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love." Yet he also pointed out that an eye for an eye leads to blindness. But we must say enough is enough to the kind of violence that's inflicted on people based on the color of their skin and not the content of their character. Hopefully throughout this program, you've been righted, united, and ignited in some way to not live in fear, but to continue expressing love, freedom, and peace. And we have to stand for that at all costs. I'm Kelly Wright. Peace out.
We better stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds. So much resistance from behind. Oh, it's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look